So welcome today to this BritMums Zoom where we are talking to Tinuke Bernard about the UK Black Influencers Directory. Now, Tinuke has been in the blogging world for ages. Can I say that?
Yeah.
For close to 10 years. So is an early adopter and an old hand at influence in the UK. And she had put together previous lists that highlighted Black bloggers, and earlier this year put together the Black influencers list. Tinuke, we can't wait to hear more about that. I just want to tell people a little bit more about you. So you are an award-nominated blogger of 10 years. You identify as a Londoner through and through, but currently living in the Twee English countryside. Mother of 2 daughters, and you believe in empowerment, inclusivity, and equality. So welcome, Tinuke. I'm also here with Susanna Scott. She is my BritMums co-founder and blogs at A Modern Mother. She's noted as a leader in the blogging world and advocate for mums, women, and she is also an award-winning blogger. So hi, welcome, Susanna.
Hi.
And I'm Jennifer Howze, co-founder of BritMums, and I blog at genography.net. So Tinuke, let's start off. Tell us a little bit about the directory and what was the impetus for it? How did it happen?
Yep, so the directory is something I had thought about creating in May. In fact, I hadn't thought about creating it. It was going to be just another single blog post like the other ones had been, just kind of like making it a bit more varied, so not just bloggers but influencers, because a lot of the influencers these days don't actually have their own blogs. So I thought I'd widen it up to influencers, whether you're a YouTuber, Instagrammer is your thing, Twitter, and it kind of blew up. So I put something on Instagram asking for people to recommend their favorite influencers, expecting maybe 10, 20 comments, and I think across 2 posts, I ended up with over 300 comments. And out of those 300 comments, about 250 names were recommended over and over. So I knew there was something more to it, and it didn't seem realistic to have this as one blog post, kind of, with imagery and a blurb for each of these people. I'd be there all year. So I decided to leave it be and come back to it later. Then at the beginning of June, a account, I think it was Blogosphere magazine, posted something about some of their favourite Black influencers, but there were only three or four mentioned. And another influencer tagged a load of us underneath saying, there are a lot more Black influencers out there, 3 isn't enough, no disrespect for the ones they mentioned, because they're awesome influencers, but there are more of us. And from that, I kind of commented that, what, I can give you 250 influencers off the top of my head, because I have this list. So I was kind of challenged to go and do that. And the person, it was Sarita Fontaine, who said, what, if you do it, I'll share it. So that night I kind of chucked all these names into a CSV file, tried to put some order to it, and published it rough and ready. It wasn't pretty. It was just in the first table I could find, and chucked it on my WordPress site. And sure to her word, she tweeted it, she Instagram storied it, it's on her sidebar on her website, and loads of people started tweeting it, and this was on a Monday night, the next day having been Black Tuesday, which I hadn't really heard about until later on that night. So again, I think Black influencers and Black people in general was very much the topic of the day that day. So it became one of the resources people started sharing as part of their, activism, to kind of share and what was the word that people were using to, to get those voices out there. So mine was one of the resources shared, and it went from being what I expected, maybe 100 page views, maybe at the tops, to I think it got 15,000 odd page views in that day. And suddenly it just kind of blew up. So I'm really glad it did. And yeah, it was just one of those fluke things.
Obviously, there was a lot of need and demand for this kind of list that you've really met. We have a question from Swazi. It says, hi all, well done, Tinuke, much needed and appreciated. Do the influencers who join or who are on the list self-select if someone wants to be a part of that list? I mean, tell us a little bit about how you put the list actually together in terms of are there people who make it and who don't make it?
Yeah, so first of all, I went by recommendations, and for sure, not everyone who was recommended went on it. So if your account is behind a private, if it's private and I can't see your account, I can't verify that you are influencing anyone, or even if that person says they're, you're influencing them. I didn't choose people whose accounts were private. I didn't choose people whose accounts were, for the most part, if it was just like a selling account. There are a few products on there and I might add more, but if it was, I don't know, it's an account that sells t-shirts, say, and I couldn't see how that would influence anyone, but I could see that the person wanted to kind of promote their friend, so they, kind of added them, go, oh, don't forget this person. But I was like, okay, I can't see any sort of activism or conversation. I can just see a whole grid where it's just pictures of your products. I didn't put them through either. If there was a nice mixture of, okay, yes, they do sell things, but they also, we get to know who they are and what they're doing, can leave some sort of emotional footprint with us, then I've added them. Now, post that, so the original list was 250 people. We're at 300 and something now, and I've got maybe another 100 that I need to at some point add. Now, these are people who have, yes, they've either come to me and they've inboxed and said, look, you missed this person out, they're amazing. Or, as the algorithm works, as I'm following new people are being recommended to me, and I'm screen printing and I must add these people, they're amazing. But also I have added a link on the actual directory at the bottom. There's a link now where you can self-select and say, you know what, I'd love to be on this list. And it's got a little form now, so you can fill in the form. It asks for more details than the list currently shows, because I'd love to, do more with it. So I've asked for little blurbs and a little bio and an image, and so I can do more of it afterwards and not have to go through the whole 300 odd people to ask for this later. So you can self-select. Self-selecting doesn't mean I'll automatically put you on there, but I want to give everyone a chance. So you don't need to have a certain amount of followers to be on this list. I'm not only choosing people with 5,000 and above. There are people on this list with 500 followers. And that's because what they've done has touched other people in some way, or I feel that what they're doing, maybe they're early on in their game, they're a year in, but you can see that they are obviously in this for good reasons, and they're going to influence people. And let's give them a chance to be on there and for other people to connect, because the only way they're going to grow and get bigger is if more people can follow them.
Well, and that's an interesting element here in terms of people finding people to follow. Let's talk about, how would you like to see people using this directory?
Yeah, so my original reason for it was so people can find each other. That's all it is. It's for the average public member to kind of go, you're a black mother sitting at home wondering, I don't know, if there are any other black mums out there doing these things or going for the same struggle. You can use it, search for motherhood, and find all these other creators who have a similar story. Maybe it's because they're also an expat, or also, a second generation trying to balance maybe some traditional values that their family are putting on them and the way they want to do things themselves. Maybe it's hair care, so you're looking for people with similar hair textures than you, and you want to know products that are good for you. To be able to find those people who can give you that advice or share your journey, I think that's really invaluable. I'm not naive. I know that it's also being used, and rightfully so, by brands and PRs who want to diversify their feeds. That's the hashtag I was thinking of earlier. Amplify voices and diversify feeds. I've never heard those phrases so much as I have this month. So, there are people who want to diversify their feeds, and I've spoken to brands over the years and PRs who have said that they would love to work with more Black influencers, but they can't find them. So this list is like, well, there's no excuse. There's 300 of them. Surely someone on this list will fit your campaign. So if anyone gets any extra work and it's because of this directory, I'm glad for it. I'll be really over the moon.
Mm-hmm. And the list is very nice because you have the genre breakdown. So, travel, well-being, beauty. Mm-hmm. So whether, even if you're just somebody sitting at home who wants to read some great content, then you can do it by category.
For sure. And I felt really bad because I kind of self-selected those categories. So I think on the list, and if I haven't, I will do it, on where people are now select and asked to be on the list. I believe I've let them choose what category they think they belong to. At some point, it'll become more dynamic, and there can be multiple, multiple categories, because we're not monolithic. There's so many sides to us, and you might be doing fashion and food and lifestyle, and I had to pick one and kind of go, oh, I hope this is what they feel comfortable with. But they might fall under a few, but I didn't want to duplicate the names by adding it singularly each time. But at some point I will ask someone who is much smarter at these things than me to make it a more dynamic list, so people can be under multiple categories. So I don't want them missing out on opportunities as well, because someone says, oh, they're only a food blogger, and doesn't take the time out to look and realize, well, actually they also talk about fitness, or they also talk about health and well-being.
Yeah, that's always a hard one, trying to categorize yourself. I always hate that when you get one choice of putting in, and then your category isn't even included. Yeah. But I'm sure you'll get there. But I was talking about diversification. That's something that at BritMums we've been working on, and we were wondering, what you thought, what with the networks out there. There's all kinds of blogging networks. There's ones for mums. There's ones for all different kinds of people. What can they do, I think, to help the cause in terms of follower numbers or projects, or let us know what you think, how the networks can help.
Yeah. I think when you said like follower numbers, I think it's really important to look past them to some extent, and know that as a Black influencer, not many of them reach that 10,000 barrier, let alone the tens of thousands. They're out there, but they're few and far between. And I think to some extent those influencers will time and time again be the ones getting the jobs because they're at that certain level. But don't discount the smaller ones. Yes, you might have 2,000 followers, but you're going to have 2,000 really engaged, really loyal followers who are the ones who are actually going to buy these products. And, I don't know, I did a campaign with DFS, and I think it was 2 years ago. And I still have people messaging me, asking me, how's the sofa going? Would you still recommend it? They're engaged, they're loyal, they actually care about what we're saying. So for more brands or PRs, kind of explain to brands as well why it's important not just to go for the numbers. Black people make 14% of the entire population. Although it would be, in an ideal world, regardless of race, everyone would follow us. But if we're being realistic, loads of people look at the colour of the skin of what we're talking about and decide, oh, they can't relate, and don't follow us. So we're not going to get the same, huge numbers of people following us. You can post really quality content, and someone else can post pictures of their rabbit and have 10 times the followers with their rabbit than we do. But so to think past numbers and actually look at the quality and the content of what we're doing, because it shouldn't be the color of the skin, it should be the quality of what we're producing. And also not to discount that there are already agencies like the Black British Bloggers Network out there that is doing really great work at supporting. But I think, again, maybe, I don't know if people don't always join it because they don't want to be stigmatized, because, oh, I don't want to join something that just says Black, because people will think we're being militant or racist in some way or anti-white by doing this. But it's not. It's there to support you and to give you a safe space to have these questions in these conversations that you might not feel safe having in other environments, for right or wrong. So in terms of what networks can do, I'd say definitely look past the numbers, and maybe even check white privilege when you're doing things, and kind of go, okay, look, because it's natural, the same way your partner will somehow resemble, your father, or, something resemble yourself. You look for things that are similar to you. So when you are, going through briefs and choosing people, you'll go for things that make you feel comfortable, that are similar to you. And sometimes it's worth maybe having a checklist and going, okay, did I just, discount that, that Asian or that black influencer because they don't look like me, and that made them seem exotic when actually their content is spot on? Do I need, even if it's like take a minute, reflect, look at your list and see what were you thinking when you chose people, and what are you doing to make sure that more people from ethnic minorities, more black people feel comfortable applying in the first place?
Yeah. I mean, those are all really good points. It's such a delicate issue. I think in terms of numbers is a super hard one, because that sometimes I can only talk from our perspective. We will get a brief that will say, we need to get to this number, like the 10K, the magic 10K for Instagram and being able to swipe up, etc. But I think sometimes, and storytelling, I think, and engagement, I think, is super important. I know recently we did a campaign you were involved in. I think we had a single mom and same-sex marriage family and Asian. And those are ones I think you really need to, I think that the smart brands recognize that and get it. And there's just such a wide range from the ones that get it to the ones that don't. I think, we could help. I know we're certainly, especially now, recommending, an ethnic influencer along with the campaign and pushing that as hard as we can. So that's what we're doing.
I think it's interesting too, this idea of looking past numbers. Definitely, it seems more and more, not as much as we like, but more and more brands or agencies are saying, we want the engagement. I mean, it's been good over the past couple of years. Suddenly we're talking more about micro influencers and not just the people with millions. Yeah. Because, as you say, they really have the close relationship with their followers. But I think it's also, hopefully, for example, people, they go in, they find these 300 influencers on your list, they follow them, and that will affect their feeds. Because that's kind of an invisible thing that I think, for the way that so many social platforms serve up content based on algorithms, where they recommend only on what you've seen and followed so far. So that ability to discover new people or new voices, of any stripe can be a challenge, and there is research showing that on certain platforms like YouTube, for example, that creates this kind of content spiral where you just keep getting more and more distilled versions of the exact same thing. So it'll be interesting if we're able to kind of use those algorithms to, as you say, diversify our feeds and to start to listen to more voices.
Yeah, literally, if you follow 3 or 4 of the people from the database, you'll see that straight away the ones they recommend are other people on the database, or just other black influencers, because they realize, oh, you're interested in this. Do you want to find a few more hair influencers? And do you want to find some more, sports influencers? If anyone knows money bloggers or tech ones, or there are definitely huge gaps on my list. It is not the be all and end all. There are so many that are missing. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds that I still don't know about. And it's only by following more and, looking through who pops up or who gets recommended, or even I'm going to the point of looking through who's commenting or who's liked things. And then you get a huge new spiral of influencers you just didn't know about, who are absolutely going out of their way with amazing imagery, really planned out, well thought of content. And where were they before? Why, they've always been there. So why haven't we seen them? Why are they not easier to find?
We have a question from Louise Stanhope. What can the industry do to stop the use of tokenistic people? I notice that there are influencers that are always used by brands that feel like they are used to tick the diversity box.
I think there's 2 sides to it. For one, from the brands, they just need to try harder. Don't be lazy. If you're, don't use the same people over and over again. It's that simple. If you find yourself, there's another agency who 3 years in a row asked me to write a post for Black History Month. And I did, I think, the first year, and then the next 2 years I made excuses why I wouldn't. Because it was I was like, am I really the only black person you know that can write this for you? And it was a bit, So it's, those influencers maybe saying, no, there are others of us, or the brand's actually going, trying a bit harder to find other influencers and, talking to PRs, Googling the amount of PRs who have come to me and emailed and said, oh, your list has been so helpful. I have found new influencers to talk to. They're out there. So use a directory, use Google, use other services.
Are they paying you for that? I think they should be.
I know, and this was a huge argument. Then they're not paying me for that. I now have a PayPal. I felt really uncomfortable putting it behind a paywall because it was never for the brands. It was always for the people. And a few people have really told me off going, this should be behind a paywall. They should be paying you. They will be paying Vrello, all these other companies, hundreds of pounds to create these lists that you've given to them, and they can even sort and choose just their bit. I wasn't even going to make it a downloadable CSV, and I thought, no, that's making their job way too easy for them. But, I wanted to help, and I'm trying to do it from the purest part of me. So the way to kind of settle those voices who are saying, no, paywall, it has got a PayPal bit and people can donate. I would say 90% of those who have donated have been individuals, not brands or PRs. They have been individual people just going, you go girl, do this. So thank you. You're paying for my website hosting and stuff. I appreciate that so much. And it'll give me time to, spend time updating this and making it better. But they're not paying me, and I might, again, this is the thing, because I don't feel comfortable doing that. I might have to get comfortable with money and maybe doing that, but that's not what it was about. From the point of influencers, so what they can do to make this better as well, what I've started doing, been doing for years now, and what I know other influencers do, whether it's WhatsApp groups or, private messaging or emails, if I get offered any sort of job or opportunity and I cannot do it, I will always refer them to 2 or 3 other Black influencers that they may not have heard of and might be interested in. Also, if I get to attend an event, I'll always ask, can I bring a +1? And I will bring an influencer who hasn't been to this event before, who hasn't been on Disney's list or whoever it is, because then, when I can. So even with your event, when it was the Facebook one, I offered a couple of people to see if they wanted to come with me, but no one was available. So I never got to ask you guys. But if anyone was available, I'd have been like, guys, is this okay? Can we bring them in front of someone else's eyes so that they get to experience this? And hopefully the brands realize, oh, this is someone I haven't seen before. Let's talk to them. So I think we've got to make space at the table. There's room for us all. If we get a seat at the table and, we're in the brand's inner circle of, they always choose me when they're looking for a diverse blogger, let's bring a couple more up there so that they've got choice and we don't burn out as well.
Yes. Well, and there you have that benefit then, the more you talk to those people in charge of their social media and influencer activities with brands, the more you go to those events, you know what's expected of you, you know what you should be doing before, during, and after.
Yeah.
It's almost just an education thing for everybody involved, so exactly. They understand those relationships better and can better kind of forge them.
Yeah, so it's not daunting as well.
And going back to what we were talking about tokenism and brands and campaigns, do you add someone because they are in an ethnic minority, and we're also not talking about other lesser heard voices, LGBTQI, etc. But do you add someone just to tick a box, or do you include someone because of they write really good recipes, or they tell really good stories, or they're really good in a certain subject? It's really complex. Complex thing.
It never be to tick a box, and there's no excuse for it to be to tick a box. If you're purely taking that person on board to tick a box and you don't really think that their content is good enough, you're only devaluing them and devaluing your brands, because people will think, well, why did you choose that person? They're not even up to scratch. the person who's been chosen will either feel really overwhelmed because they know they're not at that level yet, or you'll self-inflate them and they think that they have got there and won't try harder to get there because, they're not going to improve as much as they should because they think they're already there. To me, it's lazy if people are chosen purely because of the color of their skin, because there's enough who are already more than competent. There are enough that are more than talented. So if you've just chosen the first one, go, oh, they're black, they'll do. You're just letting everyone down. So rather spend another 10 minutes and find someone who is black and is also, they've earned it, they're doing great work, because there are so many of them.
Yeah.
So Tinuke, tell us a little bit about your experience in the UK as a black influencer. I guess the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah. It's been interesting. Like, I look at, a lot of it is kind of forever thinking, am I just not good enough? Because I've been at it for 10 years now. I see people who have come within a year and maybe I feel their writing's not as strong or the imagery hasn't tried as hard, yet their accounts will blow up. They will, within a year be talking about, oh, I do this full time. This pays my bills. In 10 years, this has never paid my bills. In 10 years, I've never said I can go 6 months without having a decent brand collaboration that aren't offering me $15 for a sponsored post. And let's not mention that there's a link in there. I still get that 10 years in, and it's insulting. And I've got canned responses now to just fly them away. And when it is a decent collaboration, I find that I don't get offered the same money as my white counterparts. And I know that for a fact. And, it's that thing of kind of going, when do I choose to take that job anyway? Because there's, they are paying me but much less, but it's going to give me exposure. I can have that. I can say that I've worked with that brand. I can hopefully get more jobs because I've worked with these great brands, but they're paying me less. So how will I ever become full-time at it? How will I ever say that this is my profession if I don't get paid well for it, or I don't get recognized or chosen in the first place, or told that, the brand has come back to the PR saying that I'm not relatable to their audience. Well, if your audience is children, I have them. If your audience is, lifestyle, I live my life. Why is my lifestyle not going to be relatable to your audience? Whatever it is, there's always 1,000 reasons why I get hit back. And then you start going, is it that my writing is awful? Is it that my picture quality is awful? Have I not learned anything in 10 years? Or is it the color of my skin? Is it that I'm a woman? What is it? It's been 10 years of a lot of self-doubt and having to, pull yourself up and go, well, I know it's not that. But yeah, there've been great times. I've had great experiences and, gone on trips and things I never would have gone on if I had not decided to blog or, be an influencer. I'm trying to now, see myself as, rather than just a blogger, because I spend more time on Instagram and social media than actually writing these days. Yes, there have been so many events that I've been to where I've been the only black woman in the entire room. And that is awful. It is awful because in this day and age, it shouldn't be. In this last maybe year or so, I've actually started emailing companies after this kind of thing happens, kind of go, hey, I was the only person of color, or was the only non-white, size 6, blonde-haired, blue-eyed person in the entire room, and people mistook me for a member of staff. That's not on. That's not right. Most times nothing really happens from it, but I'm starting to call that out now because it's uncomfortable and it's not right. And why would other influencers put themselves into these situations and put themselves out there to feel othered and feel, little the whole way through? So there's definitely work to be done, even in 2020. There's so much work to be done. People need to take the time out to, educate themselves and to reevaluate the processes they're doing at the moment and try and figure out why it's happening still.
Yes, and that's definitely an ongoing process, I think, for everyone.
Yeah.
Certainly it is for us at BritMums. It's interesting to you highlight this kind of tough choice that people have as individual bloggers and influencers, where do you take a job with a potentially prestigious project or brand even though you're not being offered as much as other people, or they're paying somebody else with their car service and this and that, and you're supposed to take the train and they'll give you 10 pounds or something like that. I think that can be a really challenging choice for all influencers as to how you value yourself, and whether that value translates into then getting a higher rate, or is it shutting you out of those relationships that then might grow into something else. I don't know that there's one answer for that, but I think it's really interesting you highlighted that. I wanted to ask about, so the name of this is UK. What qualifies somebody as being a UK influencer? Does it mean they are living here? Does it mean they're from here? Does it mean kind of both those things? They could be anywhere in the world. How have you sculpted it in terms of the British bit of it?
It's quite loose. So at the moment, it's people who live here. So you can be from anywhere in the world. I've got people on the list who are American, who are Nigerian, but who are living here now. So I think the reason I did it that way is there were loads. It's much easier, and like for the longest time, the Black bloggers I followed were American, because I could actually search the term Black Atlanta blogger and find them in the way that you can't search Black UK blogger and find them. And I think, we don't add that in our SEO, we don't add that in our titles. So there's no way to really find us. So they are people who live in the UK and are Black. Now, by all means, if you are from the UK and you're currently living elsewhere in the world, hit me up. I will add you. I have no problem with that. I still want to hear your voice. So yeah, hit me up with your link and I will add you.
I have a question. We talked a little bit about kind of brands and Black influencers. What about white influencers? What can white influencers do to help Black influencers?
Again, check your privilege, check who's in the room. I know that this is definitely something that I've heard bandied around a lot the last few weeks, and I wish it was my idea. It isn't, but I will talk on it. And people are saying that put riders in your contracts, the same way that people do when they're in film industries and other industries. If you're going to an event, ask them, how diverse is your panel? Who else have you asked? Have you, I'll only work on this campaign, or I'll only work with you in general if your brand has got an X amount of diversity, or the people you're asking to be on this campaign is diverse. Call out privilege. If you walk into a room and even, there's been people talking recently that they're going to, their companies or these brands or whatever are having conversations about Black Lives Matter, and there's not a single Black person in the room. If you find yourself in that situation, call it out. Say this isn't right. Have you invited anyone from which you're talking about? Have you invited any Black people here? So, recognize privilege, recognize what's going on around you, and call it out when you see it. Be aware that, as a Black person living in the UK, I know a lot of white history. It's what's taught for me. It's what, I know, the social aspects, because it's what's around me all the time. Now, we've had no choice in that. It just is. It's, by osmosis, it's what we organically pick up. I know white culture. Take a moment to learn, if you don't already know, Black culture, Indian culture, Chinese culture, whatever it is. Take the time to learn and read. And if you don't know it, learn it. And, a lot of it is not asking Black people to do the work for you. The amount of, even this, I wanted to do this call, and I'm happy to do this call, and I'm answering the questions now, but the amount of, I had to think about that. I had to think about whether I wanted to answer the questions about, what should white people do? Because I think there is so many resources out there already over these past 3 weeks telling you what you can do, the books you can read, the ways you can educate yourself. So a lot of times when I'm having these things in my inbox, I'm just going, check out the Black Lives Matter cards that was linked to my thing, or, you know, Google it, because so many people have talked so much more eloquently on this than I can. I get all words gibberish when I try and talk about these things. So, you know, take the time out to educate yourselves and call it out when you see it.
Yeah, then we've got some resources coming out as well. So I think that just those constant reminders and links for people to read, etc.
We've gotten some excellent comments in the chat from Anita Whitaker. She says, my family and I were the face of Vodafone for 2 years. We were the first real Black family in an advert in 2015, and I was the Black mom in Mums Make Porn, a Channel 4 documentary. I'm an activist, community leader, school governor, and qualified journalist. I'm part of a team, yay, that run London Kids Fashion Week, as well as raising my 4 boys, aged 28, 17, 11, and 8. I think that warrants an award all by itself. But I'm often pigeonholed and expected to fit a narrative, and have turned down offers because of that. Swazi also says something similar. Being BAME shouldn't be the reason you get the job, but it also shouldn't work against us. She comments that she's taken a step back from blogging. She felt like she was invisible, and that she's been asked to do things for free by companies, literally do her job for no pay. That's really disheartening. And someone else in the chat had also mentioned that they'd taken a step, Louise, step back from blogging. I think that is disheartening when we're losing great voices, and also people who have some experience in the world of influence, and that can be valuable kind of going forward, and, you know, helping all of us think of the path and what we want online influence to be, but then that they've taken a step back because of the lack of opportunity or the lack of support. So some really good things that we can be doing, white folk, checking our privilege. I really like this idea of asking who's in the room, who's on the panel, who's part of the campaign. I think that also kind of creates a good feedback loop, so that those brands or agencies who are being inclusive, who are looking at the whole message, that they know everyone's noticing. Everyone's noticing. So, Tinuke, what's next steps for you? Since you put together this list, it's kind of blown up. Of course, you have your blog Circus Mums, as well as TinukeBernard.com, where the list is. Yeah. What are your plans going forward?
So Circus Mums are probably going to close. I don't think I can do both. It's really mad because since TinukeBernard.com blew up, suddenly everyone's looking at the old one, and where I'd come to my wit's end with that one, in that, again, it's that thing of being pigeonholed. I think having mum in the title meant that I only got offered mum things, like, let's go, do you want to go watch that cinema preview at 10 a.m. in the morning on a Sunday in London? And I've had enough of that. I say no to all of those now, because, you know, I live in Hertfordshire. To get there at 10 a.m. on a Sunday morning is beyond a joke. Give me the 6 p.m. preview that I also know you do, you know, that you give to the non-mummy bloggers. So I kind of, I don't think I'm going to carry on with circusmums.com. Everything is going to be on TinukeBernard.com going forwards. Maybe a bit more grown-up talk. I know I've got a post sitting in my head that I'm hopefully going to write after this call. That's probably going to be quite controversial, and I wouldn't have felt comfortable putting on my old blog. So what's next? I've started recording a podcast. I'm a couple of episodes in that I need to just finish editing. Nobody laugh at my podcast editing skills when you hear it, because they are abysmal. I'm learning as I go. I literally have Google open and GarageBand at the same time. But I'm doing a podcast to kind of they're just conversations. They're conversations with some of the people who are on the directory list, basically. And I've got a few more lined up for the next couple of weeks. But I want to kind of display just how multifaceted these creators are away from the Instagram feeds. So yes, you are a beauty blogger, but let's talk about the fact you have a PhD in cosmetology. Let's talk about the fact that you are raising 3 children. You know, let's talk about the fact that your parents came over on the Windrush and what that looks like for you. So podcast, interviews on the blog. I don't know what else from there. If anyone has an idea, message me, because I can't see the wood through the trees at the moment. It's always hard I can give advice for everyone else to do, but it's always hard to look at things for yourself, isn't it? So I'm not quite sure what's coming up next, other than definitely the podcast, hopefully next week. And a lot more content, hopefully, on tinukebernard.com, and me closing the doors, but leaving it up so people can use the resources on Circus Mums.
And people find the podcast through tinukebernard.com?
It will be, yeah. So it'll be on there, and it's going to be on Spotify, Apple Music, you name it. I'm going to put it across all platforms and shout about it nice and loudly when it goes up, because I think that's another thing. People find it really hard to shout about themselves and to kind of toot their own horns. So I'm going to completely follow in one of my favourite Black influencers, Candice Braithwaite's books, and be very loud and proud and unapologetic when I do something and shout my achievements. So yeah, I will make sure everyone knows about it, and I'll tag you guys all in tweets and stuff so people can share it. Great.
Swazi here on the chat has said happy to help with podcasting, and she's an old hand at it. Yay!
I might need some help.
I wanted to pull out this comment from Mel Fargo, who has also been in the blogging and influencer world for a long time. No qualified Black person is asking for a leg up based on their skin color. We're asking for the same chance as everyone else, and to be given a job based on the color of our skin alone is insulting. That says we are not good enough otherwise. See how subtle that last piece of racism is. So yeah, thought-provoking comment there.
Thank you, Mel. Yeah, Mel hit it on the head. I remember speaking with Mel after a BritMums event. Like, Mel was one of my favorite writers of all times. Like, she can make me cry with her words. But like, seriously, if someone should have had 10,000 followers without thinking twice and be having her own books and stuff by now, Mel Fargo is one of those people. Like, her writing is out of this world. Like, she's so talented at anything she puts her hand to. And I remember having a conversation with her, and I remember being very shy. Mel, you make me awestruck when I talk to you. And we were maybe tweeting about maybe BritMums needing a Black bloggers category, in that in my time I've not seen a Black blogger be nominated, let alone win an award in BritMums. And it's things like that, going to these events and seeing who's picked and who's won, and going, I can't do this. I can't, I don't know what it is. I can't get in these cliques. I can't get people to vote for me in the first place. I can't get the page views needed to be nominated and be seen to even get on the radar of awards. I'm an award nominated blogger. My awards come from other places like Pinterest. My pins have been awarded, have got through to last rounds of things. But my blogging, and that's from my blogs. But, my blogging, my writing, no matter what category, has never got, even if I self-nominate, doesn't go anywhere. And I think for a lot of Black bloggers, the only way we will win is if we have a category for Black bloggers, but we shouldn't be fighting against each other. And it shouldn't be purely because we're a Black blogger. We want to win, rightly so, in the photography award or the fresh voice or, the lifestyle or whatever it is. We want to win based on what we've written, not based on the color of our skin. So, yeah, thanks, Mark. You saying that reminded me of that conversation.
And that brings up a kind of ancillary point that the judging panels need to be diverse in opinion as well.
Yeah.
Of what it looks like and kind of what those judges think or areas they come from.
For sure. And yeah, beyond even race, it's looking at things like socioeconomic background, how many are working class, who are middle class, who understands, when we use certain slang or talking about certain areas, if people aren't from a diverse background, diverse race, diverse sexual orientation, then when they are talking and judging blogs that do talk about these things, that do talk about, you know, living on a shoestring, or talking about bringing up a family as an LGBT couple, then it's always going to be this exotic thing, this othered thing, not the norm, if they don't get it. And if they can't explain to the panelists why this is important, or why this is pivotal, or why this is groundbreaking or talent, you know, if no one's there to explain it to them, what's going to change?
Yeah. Yeah, great. Well, we're coming to the end of the time for our Zoom here. Any final words from Susanna or from Tinuke about our topic, about what's coming up? I have to say, I found this really illuminating, informative, and invigorating, inspiring about kind of the road ahead and what we can be doing, what I can be doing personally, what BritMums can be doing, and the sense that we're really talking about it out loud now. So that's been something personally that's very exciting.
As I was looking through kind of my feed this morning, I saw Reverend Al Sharpton. He was on one of the morning programs, and he said, you know, we must stand together. So I think no matter what is going on, I think working together, bolstering our voices together is, you know, really positive way forward.
Yeah, I think leaning in is really important. Leaning into difficult conversations, realizing that no one always gets it right, and it's okay, and it's, you know, to not be defensive, to lean in, to have those difficult conversations, to make room for people, and not dismiss people's experiences. You know, just make room. Everyone needs to listen to each other, and just make sure it's not a fad. Make sure that my stats already tell me that for some it has been a fad, and it's really sad if I look at the stats in my blog, or people unfollowing now, that, you know, the fad's over a bit, but they followed us all 2 weeks ago. You know, stick with it. It's going to be uncomfortable. You're going to learn new things about yourself and people you love. Stick with it, lean into it, and it's a long slog. It's not a quick fix.
Absolutely.
I had one more thing, Jen, before you close, that we're always looking for a diverse group at BritMums Professional, and you could join at pro.britmums.com.
Yes, and really tell your friends. Tell everyone. Also, so Mel, also, I wanted to call to read out her additional comment. Organizations should accept they will get it wrong and not be defensive, but to listen as to why. Listening to those who have suffered is usually where the answers lie on how to forge ahead. From the Black perspective, we also can't ask for brands and organizations to do better and then jump on them for even trying. So some really interesting comments, and I think that a sense that people are really trying to, I don't know, look at things in the round, you know, that we're all trying to address the issue and, I don't know, basically make things better. Because of course, it's like, it's just better to have lots more diversity in voices and opinions out there. You know, it's not something that, you know, as a society we're doing for the benefit of Black influencers or Black voices. It's like, it makes all of us richer.
Yeah, especially today with social media, how you could really hone in, and with the algorithms, you could really just be fed that information. It really does, as Tinuke said, it does take effort to break out of that. And sometimes we just need a little reminder.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much, Tinuke, for coming and speaking to us today and sharing with us the evolution of the directory, but also kind of your story and what's coming up. Thank you everyone who took time to come on, chat, comment. We will be posting this on BritMums and sharing. And yeah, so look forward to seeing you again, and see you next time, BritMums Zoom.
Thank you.
Bye.